Welcome to the Standard Deviations podcast, presented by Orion Advisor Solutions and hosted by Dr. Daniel Crosby, Orion's Chief Behavioral Officer and New York Times bestselling author. Each week, Dr. Crosby interviews a fascinating new guest on a range of compelling topics, from literature to psychology to financial wellness. To learn more about Dr. Crosby's behavioral finance work at Orion, visit www.orion.com.
Hello and welcome to the Standard Deviations podcast. I am your host, Dr. Daniel Crosby, back from a month in California and back at it with the podcast. And I'm joined today by fellow ATLian Matt Reiner, who is a CFA and CFP designation holder. He's a partner at Capital Investment Advisors, multi-billion-dollar RIA here in the ATL. Additionally, he's the managing partner of Wela Strategies, an RIA that deals with the investment needs of the mass affluent. And he is on a mission to help every human have a human financial advisor, which sounds like a good mission to be on to talk about on this podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Daniel. Great to see you, and welcome back to the steamy ATL, buddy. It's a little bit hot here now.
It's a little bit hot, but I will tell you what, man. First of all, part of what I love about going to California for a month is obvious, the perfect weather and the sun and all of that. But it also makes me so happy to see Atlanta again. Like when I see a tree, I get real excited when I see a tree. When I feel humidity, I feel alive. And so it's good. I'll be honest, it's good to be back. It makes my kids really miss it, and I think that's part of the benefit.
Distance makes the heart grow fonder, right? That's what they say. It always helps out.
It's true. And no diss on Southern California. I will put the Atlanta food scene against any place on earth. And I miss the food, man. It was great.
People that moved down here from New York are starting to talk about it. I'm telling you, that's the one thing that Atlanta got ridiculed on for a while, but it's not that way anymore, man. It's been great here.
No, it's very, very good. So we're gonna move on from shouting out Atlanta, which we could do for the full hour, and we're gonna talk about you and your mission. So you've written a book, Future Advisor, and I think the approach you took is really neat. Because this is a book that's comprised of wisdom that you gathered from interviewing hundreds of advisors and leaders in our space about the future of our space and how they saw the future, their visions for the future of advice. As you compiled those ideas, you put them together. What sort of ideas, what sort of threads started to emerge from that process?
Yeah, I think that there's a few threads that really emerged from that. And that was a fun one because from our podcast over at Bridging the Gap, we were able to talk with a ton of people. And I think that one of the main aspects that I saw, one of the things that emerged was the what we do is not going to change, meaning helping families plan for their financial future and plan for all of the things that encompass that, which includes investing, estate tax, etc. That's, I don't think, going to change. But the how will drastically change. And and what I found in those conversations was that I was surrounding myself with a lot of people that had this ambition to say, let's lean into being uncomfortable. Let's lean into change. Let's lean into innovation. And then I go to other conferences and I finally realized that I was surrounding myself with people that were similar to my mindset. But there's this huge swath of people that are still resistant to change, their status quo. And so that was like a really big eye-opening aspect, is that, yes, I think that there is a drive and a push that's growing in number of people and in power, that things are going to change. But it's not the what. I think that the industry that's on the other side is worried that the what is going to be changing. And it's not that. It's the how we do what we do that's going to change. And I think that it's already been done. If you look at it, right? Trading, when Dad started our firm 27 years ago, he had to call Schwab to figure out what the markets did, right? That's when stocks were trading, in fractions, not in pennies, right? And you weren't able to get performance reports like you do at Orion and these companies these days. And so we've already seen change, but I think it's just going to see that exponentially change faster now because of advancements in technology, acceptance, and mentalities of others. And just like robos disrupted how we invest, I think that there's going to be more disruption on that. And that's what I took away from these individuals.
So I want to drill down on the how a little bit, sort of knowing your mission, knowing what you're all about. My assumption is that the how of how things are going to look different, things are going to look a little more human. What specifically might those changes look like to the how?
Yeah, I think that from the how standpoint, it's a matter of the way that we serve our clients, right? So if you think about how do we interact with clients, right? That's changing since COVID. That's one of the very easy ones that's out there. But it's also how you deliver your value, right? Are you going to deliver your value showing an investment performance report all the time? No, I don't think so. I think that you're going to be delivering your value by using a lot more psychology, a lot more human dynamics and understanding who they are. And you're going to be coaching them more than you are going to be just advising them on investments. And so in how we're going to deliver that, I think that that's going to evolve in the sense of it may not be with just a 50-page financial plan. We may be using board game concepts. We may be using virtual reality to help people visualize the future. I think that that's some of the how. And then you think about how we do our job day in and day out. Think about how we get research, how we derive, how we write content. You think about how we draft and research for emails and stay up with code and do compliance. All of that, I think, is going to change and evolve, meaning that it's easier for people to write content now. It's easier for people to be seen within social and drive engagement than it's ever been before. And I don't think that a senior advisor is going to be having to do a ton of investment research or responding to emails or any of that nature. They're going to be focused on bettering the relationship because they're going to be able to hand a lot of that stuff off to younger, newer employees because of the resources that are going to be built with generative AI, with CRM integration, with portfolio management and everything of that nature. So I think that the how in every aspect of the cycle is going to be a bit different. And that's what I mean by that.
Yeah, I certainly share that vision with you. You know, there was I read an article recently on how virtual reality is being used to help warfighters recover from PTSD and effectively putting them back in that battlefield scenario, but pairing that aversive stimulus with real-time relaxation techniques and teaching them a new response to that. And it's neat to think about how these sort of immersive technologies and all these next level technologies that we will talk about some more today could really take financial planning and advice from being what is historically a pretty dry, like, let's be honest, a pretty sterile enterprise and make it something a little more immersive and a little more exciting. So speaking of exciting, let us wade into the most fraught, the most passionate, the most contentious piece of the financial social media world, which is, of course, fees. Now, there was an article yesterday. I'm trying not to put anyone on call anyone out. There was an article yesterday that had a very provocative title about how AUM fees might be coming to an end, right? And then you read, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? I'm like, this is surprising to me. Like, it worked, right? The clickbaity headline worked. I read it. And then within the body of the piece, it goes on to say that 98.7% of SEC registered firms still charge AUM fees. And you're like, well, I don't know that we've quite reached extinction yet. And, the fee debate is ongoing. And there's, of course, many different ways to run a business. There's many different ways to charge clients for the goods and services that we deliver. But you're on record rather passionately pounding the table about how advisors should never lower their fees. Why is that your stance?
Yeah, and I think that's the flag that I love to wave, and I'll continue to wave it till probably the day I'm 6 feet under, is that I think that advisors are extremely valuable, and the service that we have been delivering is going to evolve, I think, right? The service that we have been delivering, how everybody's judging why you should lower your fees, is being commoditized. And so they're looking at one silo. And so if you want to stay in that silo and hang your value on investment management, doing that better than anybody else, then yes, you're probably going to get squeezed on fees. You don't have much ground to stand on. But I have belief in the human element, just like you understand the need for a sounding board and need for another accountability partner when it comes to high risk or high value items, right? When it comes to something that is so important, you need someone to be an accountability partner, and advisors are there. And so the industry and the mentality is shifting from just being an investment advisor to being a wealth coach, a wealth accountability partner. And that is extremely valuable. And I always liken it back to golf. I'm a huge golfer. You think about golf, for instance, these are the most elite players in the world. And the technology in that space has evolved drastically from when Jack Nicklaus played to now. You can go out on, there's this thing called a TrackMan. It's just like 4x4 or 3x3 type thing, or it's maybe even like 18 inches by 18 inches. I don't even know, that you just put on the range and you put it behind your club and you look on your phone as you hit, and it shows the trajectory, the club angle, the ball flight, the ball speed, every data point that Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer would have dreamt of, you can now see. And you could, and it even analyzes what you should be doing with that. So it can tell you. Yet golfers, the most elite golfers in the world, all have coaches. More golfers have coaches today than golfers did in the past. And why is that? When you have access and ability, it's because the stakes are higher than ever before. These golfers have swing coaches, mental coaches, everything of that nature, and they're paying more every year for these coaches because of not that they need help on how to putt the ball, not that they need help on how to shoot a free throw in basketball. Let's just use like a shooting coach over in basketball to switch gears for a second. It's not, I don't need it on the fundamentals of how to swing a golf club. I know how to do that at a high level. It's because I need that edge because the stakes are so high. And when I think about retirement and I think about saving and I think about investing, the stakes are the highest of anything ever. You only get one shot at retirement. And when it comes to money and emotions, as you're extremely aware of, it's a messy environment. And so although there's so many advancements in technology and tools and ability and accessibility for people to do it on their own, when it comes time that they've got to make a big decision, they want help from someone that's solely focused on that. It's the same reason why CEOs have business coaches, even though they've made it to the pinnacle. It's why the most elite professionals always have coaches. And I think that when the stakes are high, you need an accountability partner, you need a peer, you need a helper. And that's why advisors are so valuable. And what I challenge the advisor community on is let's hone that and own that and be okay evolving what we do and how we do it. Because if you hinge on what we used to do, then I think that that's a hard thing to do. But we can be more to our clients than what we were because of the advancements in technology, analyzing all the data and disseminating it and helping them understand it.
Yeah, it's exciting to me because like you talked about with the golf swing analysis, right? The trading and the investing and the analysis and the reporting, it's never been easy, right? Like it's never been more streamlined. And as the nuts and bolts of managing a financial life become more technologically enabled, the role of an advisor gets more and more rewarding to me, I think, right? You get to focus on more and more of the behavioral value add, the trust, the relationship, which is all immensely valuable. Being a life coach, a decisional coach, all of that stuff, frankly, more valuable for our clients and more enjoyable as practitioners, at least, again, from my highly biased seat.
It's more meaningful. There's more controllables in that as well, right? Like the markets, as much as you think you can control it, data continuously shows that you can't. It reverts to the mean. That's what it does. And so I think that, and that's the same thing with golf coaches. They're able to analyze it deeper because of the technologies, and they're able to provide better insights to make their people or their players better. And I think that that's where advisors stand an opportunity that's immense.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So keeping on this topic of tech enablement, you were ahead of the curve, my friend. You did a video 3 years ago that talked about how advisors should approach AI. And I think AI 3 years ago felt a little remote, perhaps, right? Like it almost feels like Chat GPT came out of nowhere. It's like it wasn't there and then it was here and it was good. And so I'm curious, what did you say then? How do you feel now? And what, if anything, has kind of been changed in how you think about AI for advisors now that AI is here in a meaningful way?
Yeah, and this idea of neural networks and kind of the transition of AI from being like robotic process automation, basically if this then that, moving on to neural net or kind of natural language modeling, being able to understand humans and respond, and then neural networking has always been intriguing to me because it's like you can artificially create the brain, and that's impressive. And so what I talked about in that video is how do we use this technology to eliminate the menial and mundane tasks to allow us to spend more time doing what is our core differentiator, which is building relationships. And I said it in that video. I said, people want to talk with people when it comes to their money and savings. That is still truer today than ever before. It was true 3 years ago, and it'll be true 15 years from now. And but I was talking about how computers can analyze and digest and understand data across different systems faster than humans can. And so we should leverage them to do that for us and eliminate the menial mundane that we've done. I think that what's changed for me is that how this evolution has gone so fast, and in the wide scale aspect of how it's touching so many different things and the ease of it, right? I didn't know it was going to be this easy to get value from AI, and which is then now accelerated the impact that it can have. And so I think that that's really what's changed. But the core functionality and the use cases and what I'm excited about has also evolved from just doing the menial and mundane automation to, you think about it from multiple different silos. Let's start with marketing, right? Creating content, creating a content calendar, creating headlines and imagery and charts and everything of that nature that you need to put into your content, and being able to pull different data points together and getting you, as you had mentioned on stage at one of the conferences, getting you 80% of the way there to allow you to then put the 20% away there. So this idea that people that have struggled in our industry to think about, they say they're not creative enough to do content creation, that now is eliminated, which now allows people to get their views and their ideas and not be blocked on what to create. I then think about client servicing, right? Of course, eliminating the menial and mundane of data processing, but think about sentiment analysis of emails, sentiment analysis of phone calls, being able to act on that data and understand that data, right? The drafting of emails, the creating of a database like what Morgan Stanley is doing, right? They've created a database of all their emails, their knowledge center, their reports that they've done over hundreds or decades, and they put it in, and now their service center is able to query those very quickly, specifically by just chatting like a human to this to provide answers. So it creates consistency, and it creates speed, and it creates a more efficient service person, so it helps on the bottom line. And then you think about eliminating data input. What really is exciting is not just eliminating data input from like a form somewhere else, but if I'm just having an email conversation with someone, the ability for that email to be understood and then inputted into multiple systems without me having to tell it to do anything. For instance, the client tells me they started taking their Social Security. That then can be easily put into a planning software, into my CRM, and everywhere else I need it to be without me doing a thing because the email is able to read it. You think about from compliance, no more rules based on checking emails for guarantee or text for guarantee. Just say, keep me in line with the 1940 Act, or keep me in line with the marketing rules of the SEC. And it's going to be able to revert to that. And it becomes now, as opposed to static, it becomes dynamic. As things are changing and evolving, it automatically updates, which makes compliance that much easier, from cyber to individual compliance. And then the last thing I'll say is, I think on the portfolio management side, which is super interesting to me, is this ability to cross-reference data points from all of the different connection points that the client has to be able to coach them in a behavioral way. And I say that meaning by looking at what notes did you put into CRM over the years, and what did the client say? What emails have they sent to you as the advisor? Plus, what emails have they sent to your CSA and maybe to the admin and to the marketing team? What emails have they opened within the marketing emails? What are they saying on social? How often do they log in to their custodian or their portal, their portfolio reporting portal? And then what is their portfolio doing? If something not aligning with how they've been talking, that we need to take an action to get there. That is like, everybody's like, whoa, that's crazy. That is feasible today. Like that is able to be done. And then you think about the inability or the ability to create and take antiquated technologies like our technologies of our systems today and make them modern without much work, because now generative AI can read multiple different data architectures and data systems and query that and learn that. I think that there is drastic opportunity, more so than I ever thought 3 years ago.
Yeah. So the thing that I love about your take on this is I feel like when I go to conferences and things, so the conversation around this is so shallow and it's so sort of fear-based. And it's like the prevailing question is AI going to take our jobs? And the answer is, no, guys, like you're going to be okay. AI won't take your job. The real answer is, I think, get super excited, because not only is AI not going to take your job, it's going to allow you to do the parts of your job that differentiated you in the first place better than ever before. The compliance nonsense, all of the mundane sort of rote stuff is going to get automated by AI. You're going to have more freedom than ever to be the most human version of yourself if you embrace this, right? We've taken, as an industry, it feels like such a fear-based approach. And I just want to run up and embrace this thing with open arms and talk about the ways that it can make us more human and better than we've ever been before. And people are still sort of mired in this, like, hey, am I in trouble mentality? And I think those people are going to get lapped by people who are taking it seriously.
To those people, just for one thing on that, is to the people that are fearful of it, I get it. Everybody's like, well, Terminator, they're going to run us, but I can understand that. I don't agree with it. But if you're fearful of this, all I ask you to do is just go to OpenAI and just sign up. It's a free to use, and just engage with ChatGPT for a second. Just ask it anything random, and just don't bring it to your clients. Take a baby step to understand it. Don't make opinions about it from afar based on the headlines and everything of that nature. We always tell our clients, don't believe the headlines, don't believe that. But we as an industry are falling prey to that same thing because we're humans. So just go take a step to learn about it as opposed to assessing it from afar.
Yeah. So I just finished writing my new book, right? Won't be out for like a year, but I just finished writing it. And I wanted to see how I could use ChatGPT in the process, right? If you ask ChatGPT to write something, it's pretty wooden. Like, I mean, on the one hand, it's pretty impressive, but nobody's going to mistake it for a skilled author, right? So it's not going to take the job of it's not going to take Stephen King's job anytime soon, right? And then I ask it to do research, right? Like I would type in stuff like, hey, find me the 10 most cited articles on financial wellness. And it would return nonsense, because what it does is it looks for the next most plausible word in a series. And so it gives you these, it spits back these academic research reports that sound incredible. And then you go look them up and they don't exist, because it's just this amalgamation of all this different research gobbledygook, right? But then what it was incredible for, my book is 50 essays, right? So it's like 50 essays on money, mind, and meaning. And for each of these, I started with some sort of usually historical anecdote. Then I talk about the psychological research. Then I talk about what you can do about it. So what I would do is I would put into ChatGPT, find me a time in history where someone's greed led them to a bad conclusion. And it would give you like the most incredible stuff that I had never heard of. Now, I've got to go take that and research and write it and do it myself, but it's put me down a good path. So it's it's not going to do everything for you, but it is that, 40, 50, 80% solution, depending on the task you're trying to do. And it didn't write a word of my book, but it expedited the process of writing my book so much by sort of turning me on to these historical anecdotes that I never would have, it would have taken me a lifetime to source myself.
Yeah, that's an incredible example. I've used it in that similar way. And I would say that the thing about ChatGPT is that the ability to have the conversation of being like, hey, make this different. This doesn't fit my tone. My tone is more like this. And the ability to take what it shoots out initially isn't the glory. It's what you can do with that and massage it just like you would with an executive assistant in the sense of, hey, this isn't right. Like we need to do a little bit different. And it will keep coming back with different ideas and options for you, which is really great, but you still have to put your own touch on it. It can just give you the kind of the push and the starting way. And the other thing is I used it in an example of like, I want to know about IRS rules, and this is my client situation, never using the client name or anything. What would they be? What should I do? Draft an email. They're a very nervous person. Draft an email, explain this in very short terms, and it gives you something that you then can go edit. That's something that is empowering to like a junior CSR or a junior advisor that's trying to help out a senior advisor and create scale and efficiency for your highest producers.
Yeah, I last thing I'll say about it, my son and I make hot sauce together every week, and my son, he's 9, but he has ambitions of turning this into like this sauce dynasty. He talks about, and we were working on the sauce dynasty, right? And we went to ChatGPT and we said, hey, create a marketing plan for a hot sauce company based in Atlanta, whatever. And it was so good. So when you ask it to create something, I use it when I practice guitar at night. I'll say, hey, give me a verse, chorus, bridge, original chord progression in the style of Radiohead with a 7th chord and a minor chord or whatever. And what it spits back is incredible. So yeah, get in there, just like Matt's talking about, get in there, get your hands dirty, see what it does, see what it doesn't do. Don't base your ideas on other people's ideas. Get in there and see what it does. So Matt, the process of preparing for and researching out the body of work of each of my guests is always a treat, right? And perhaps the thing I came across of yours that most resonated with me and that I found most unique to you was that you have an interesting message about transparency. And the reasons you advocate for it, I think you advocate for it harder than most. And the reasons I think are more varied than most, if that makes sense. I think traditionally we talk about it sort of in the rather important but obvious world of trust building. You talk about transparency as being so much more. Can you talk to us about the many reasons why you think transparency matters for advisors and sort of what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I see it from, you can call it trust, but I call it just like from the relationship side. I think that transparency or the relationship is the core differentiator that's going to keep us. That's our moat around from technology. And I see it from this side of saying, I have nothing to hide. Nobody's going to be able to replicate what I do, who I am. My core differentiator is me, is my personality. And some people get along with me. Some people like me. Some people don't. Some people despise me. And that's okay. Like, I get that. And I've come to accept that. And I think that, we all hold our kind of our secret sauce, going to hot sauce, like to our close to our chest, because we're like, oh no, someone's going to be able to take that investment philosophy or that marketing thing that we did and be able to go and do it. And it's going to reduce our market share. And I call BS on that, right? I do. And I talk about this with my business partners all the time as well. I just call BS on it because the journey, having started a few different technology companies that failed, which was my biggest learning lesson of my life, and that I'm so grateful for, I learned that in the what other people have learned and they explain to you, that journey between them explaining it to you and them actually starting that journey of learning, they went through so much trial and tribulations that you'll never catch up. You're always going to be playing this rat race of catching up, right? When we started our direct-to-consumer application, we wanted it to be like Personal Capital. And I studied that company from top to bottom. And I thought about, everything, and I knew everything, what technology they use. And then I was like, let's just go build that. And we started it, and I was like, holy cow, like this is unbelievably difficult. And they already have learned all these things. And by the time I learned what they had already learned that I saw on the outside, they're like 100 steps ahead of me. And if you're not if someone is able to replicate what you're doing, then it's really not that special, because you haven't done enough, in my opinion. And I just seen it time and time again on that side. And on the other side of transparency as well, I think it's like, in this industry, we ask our clients to expose themselves to us, basically. Tell us everything, your deepest, darkest fears, and, we're going to be able to judge you because, you haven't saved, and like, that's a fear of a human psychological aspect as well. Like, why can't we as advisors be vulnerable and exposed and be transparent as well on that side too, right? Why can't we be vulnerable about our challenges, or talk about, the things that we were difficult, that we weren't great at, and we may not be great at something within our own industry. That creates the greatest bonds. And so, with that, if you're willing to do that, then exposing everything about what you do, how you do it, all of your your game plans, nobody's ever going to replicate that, because if you're true to yourself in your relationships, nobody can replicate that. And that's going to be your key differentiator. And then the last thing I'll say is that there's so much business out there, right? My mission is to help every single human in this country have access to a human financial advisor, not just financial advice, to a human financial advisor, because I believe in how much value they provide. That's a lot of opportunity. That's a lot of TAM, as they say in the startup world, that you can go after. And so, someone taking one or two clients isn't going to hurt you.
Yeah. So keeping with this idea of transparency, right? If you think about Cialdini's work in Influence and Persuasion, he talks about the 6 things that are persuasive or get people to do what we ask them to do. And one of them is reciprocity. And, I feel like it's so lopsided, and there's such a power differential when it comes to the world of advice, because again, we're asking for everything. We're asking them to bare their souls to us with respect to money, because money touches every part of life. And then we're just sort of this blank slate, perfect economic decision-making machine. And I think that people want to see, I think they want to see the person behind the business. So I think you're absolutely right there.
And I just on that, 2 points there, I believe in this concept called the gift of going second. And the concept is that I believe that in any conversation, you should be the first one to talk and be vulnerable in that part of it, because that's going to open up the other person to also be vulnerable, makes it more comfortable, as opposed to starting out by just like pinging them with questions. Mm-hmm. You're opening up and saying, this is my story. This was my journey. These are my struggles. This is how I came through with it. And it really creates this connection from a neural networking standpoint, and also just from a relationship standpoint, that opens up the floodgates to allow you to do a better job of serving that client, whether it's wealth manager or any service provider. And the second thing is by us putting up that veil, or that that shield that's saying we are the best, we are so smart from an economic standpoint, we're perfect. It actually hurts us to an extent, because then when you don't know the answers or something goes astray that's out of your control, they're gonna be like, well, I thought you knew everything. Right. And if you just say, I'm human just like you, I make mistakes just like you, it helps you in those tough times, which is where advisors tend to struggle the most.
So the last question I'm going to ask you about here today, the last formal question, has to do with an innovation lab, because you and I had a conversation recently about, sort of fintech innovation labs. I'm curious, why you see a need for this, what it's going to look like, and then keeping on this theme of transparency, what have the failures of the past taught you about how to do this the right way?
Yeah, such a good question. And if I don't touch on all of them, just call me out on them. But I think why we need to do it, I think that if I have a natural inclination that if we're not moving forward, we're going to get left behind. I think that that's just the nature of it. And I want to be ahead of the wave, not, really just from I have a deep sense of curiosity, and I want to learn and be curious about what's ahead. And that's like a personal thing. And the way that I can bring that into this company is I'm going to go be curious, and we're doing great as a firm. We're growing. We have an amazing team. We have 4 offices, about to have 5 across the country. things are great. I could spend all the time on the golf course if I want to, but I'm just curious about what's next. What are other industries doing? And I never want to get into this point where we just get status quo and stuck in our ways and blind to the opportunities, because then you become Kodak. And I don't want to become Kodak. And I think that the way that you can do that, you can grow and you can stay curious. And I have this just inclination of always wanting to learn and be curious. And that's really why I think this is so important for us as a firm. And, I think it's also how we're going about doing it is, it's a matter of, I love the quote by Matt Ridley that says, innovation occurs when multiple ideas come together and have sex. I think that is a just incredible concept of how innovation works. And I think it's more about, and I have a chart within our deck that we created for our team. It's not what we're innovating on, it's how, and it's within the who we are as our ethos. Some things we innovate on are going to work, and they're going to change some of the how and the what we do. Some of them, a lot of them are not going to work, but it's going to create this DNA and this ethos of innovation inside of our team that's going to make us better and thinking differently than any other firm out there. And so how we're setting it up is that we're starting out with education and learning, and we call them these innovation labs. They're like 3-hour labs where we're going to learn about a different concept, whether it's generative AI, whether it's brainstorming, and we're going to bring people together from multiple verticals of our organization, and we're going to learn about it, and we're going to do hands-on activities that are kind of theatrical in nature, right? Where they're memorable. It's not just you're sitting through a presentation and watching a video. It's like you're getting your hands dirty, doing an activity, whether it's using ChatGPT, whether it's doing a brainstorming exercise on a problem statement that we have, whatever it may be. And the idea that we're going to come out of that is that hopefully people start thinking differently. They start seeing problems and opportunities and challenges in their day-to-day differently and bringing that to the forefront for us to innovate on. And then the next step is to really build a business around it inside of our organization where you have a managing director, you have technology individuals, you have project managers, you have researchers, everything of that nature that are taking these challenges that now our new team is innovatively finding and seeing, and these opportunities of how might we change different aspects and making them come to life. And so I think that that's really powerful. And I think that the last question you asked was what did I learn, right? I failed a lot, and I failed in some big spots in front of a lot of people. And I think that where I failed was a lot of the innovation came from one person, and that's not really innovation. And I think that also we moved so fast that we didn't give ourselves the ability to iterate quickly enough. And what I mean by that is that we dove so deep into it that it was hard for us to change what we were doing without losing a ton of time, money, and overcoming that. We didn't have enough time to overcome that. And so my mentality as we build this innovation lab is just do it slow and steady, start with education, give us that space to prototype and iterate and think, and then identify feasibility based on different metrics, and then dive into those. But do it on a small scale, as small as possible. I think that's one thing I tried to do. It had to be the perfect situation. I wrote after I closed down Benjamin earlier this year, I went and took some time, and I wrote about a 70 pages worth of my learnings from that experience. And it was, there's a ton that I can go into, but a lot of it was, you don't have to build the perfect product right away to get feasible feedback on whether you're going the right direction. And I thought you did, because if it didn't, then it wasn't good enough and it had to be perfect. And, that's a lesson that I'll take with me forever, and always ask for help. I think that's something that I took away. And that's what I'm asking for in this innovation lab, because it's not my ideas. It's going to be these teams' ideas that go through the labs that create amazing ideas that we're innovating on. And I'm just going to be a facilitator of that.
Yeah, it's such a powerful thing to reflect back, especially to that level. I mean, 70 pages is incredible, but I think failure can sting so much that I think sometimes we want to move quickly past it and brush it under the rug. But I think that what you did is exemplary and is a lesson to all of us. I don't remember who to credit for this. You listen to so many podcasts and read so many books. I can't remember where I came across this idea recently, but it was someone whose parents asked them each week, what was something you failed at this week? And I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to maybe tonight, try it with my kids. because I think that's such a healthy attitude, right? And just sort of destigmatizes failure, lets us talk about it in a new way. I know there's a museum of failure too that I really want to visit. So I think it's a great attitude. So try that tonight. Think about in your own life. Talk to your kids about, what's something you've failed at recently, because if you haven't failed, you're probably not dreaming big enough. So
I love that. I did read that same thing. And I would say this, that everybody talks about failure in a conversation about their successes, and nobody talks about failure in the moment. And so failure always takes a back seat, because it's like, well, that guy, Mark Zuckerberg failed at this, but well, he created Facebook. Jeff Bezos failed, but he created Amazon. And I think that not enough people talk about failure in the moment of the failure. And I think that that's where we can change the stigma on failure, because we have a culture here to celebrate failure. And we want people to take those risks and be celebrated for that. Risks that are calculated not with client monies, but in terms of innovating processes and mindsets, etc. And we want to celebrate those, because there's a stigma in this world that we learn at an early age in school that failure is bad. If you fail, you get held back. So that means that you don't want to fail in school or in business or in life.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Too many articles from sin to billionaires telling you to follow your dreams and take risks, and not enough on people who are still stinging from the hurt. I love that. I love that, you modeling the transparency you're talking about. Okay, so last thing, we've not talked about this. So my apologies for putting you on the spot, but I think you're going to rise to the occasion. We're going to do the Atlanta, Georgia Chamber of Commerce thing here. For those who are listening, Atlanta, in my opinion, does not get nearly enough respect. So I want you, to someone listening who maybe hasn't been to Atlanta or hasn't been recently, one food, one restaurant, one food experience, one cultural experience of some sort, and then one, maybe, well, we'll call it a sporting event. How are you going to direct people who want to?
Oh, the food side is so hard. My wife keeps our list of all of our favorite restaurants, but I think that it's got to go to the food experience at Umi is unreal. I think that if you're a sushi buff, and which I am, I love it. I think it's up there. I went to a sushi restaurant in New York recently. I think it's up there with it. And the experience is right there in the middle of Buckhead. I absolutely love that. I mean, you can go over to the West Midtown and go to kind of some of those restaurants. One of them that just closed down that I loved, Redbird and JCT. But I would say Umi for that. I think from a culture experience, I think everybody would say Ponce City Market. I think that you got to check that out. You got to check out the Battery. But I would say go to the Botanical Gardens during Christmas time. It is a special place. And how they set it up, any of their exhibits over there. I love the Botanical Gardens. I can walk there. You can walk on the Belt Line all the way down around there too. Super incredible. And I think the sporting event, you got to go down to the Battery and go to a Braves game. I mean, I know you're a Hawks fan, but I'll tell you, the Braves are, that scene down there is unreal during a game day. It reminds me of Fenway and Wrigley, and I think it's kind of a newer version of that with a little bit more hype and appeal.
Okay, so for a restaurant, great suggestions. Also for a restaurant, I'm gonna do a shout out to Buford Highway. So Buford Highway is a stretch of Atlanta where you could literally eat food from all over the world. I'm gonna send a specific shout out to Kamayan ATL, my favorite Filipino restaurant. Kamay means hand in Filipino, so a Kamayan is where you eat with your hands. So they have normal, you can eat with a fork too, like you can order a more traditional dish. But if you go with friends, you can get the Kamayan sort of special, where they just pile rice high in the middle on banana leaves, cover it with spring rolls, fish, barbecue, everything, and you eat it with your hands, and it is a singular experience. You will never have an experience quite like that. In terms of the cultural thing, I mean, you got the second biggest aquarium in the world here. That's a win. But the Center for Civil and Human Rights is so moving downtown. If you haven't been there to hear the history, to experience the history for the struggle of civil and human rights of all kind. That's a must do. And then in terms of sporting events, Braves got the best record in baseball, absolutely electric on game day. I'm going to go unexpected and say Atlanta United. The soccer team, you don't think of the South with soccer, but I mean, you got 76,000 soccer fans on their feet for the entire time, and that place is just rocking. So to think that, Atlanta United gets better attendance than the Falcons is pretty great. I mean, perhaps not surprising given how the Falcons have been, but Atlanta United game is a must-see. So come see me and Matt in Atlanta. It's a great spot. Matt, you're a champ, dude. Thanks for letting me put you on the spot there at the end. Love what you've shared with us. If people want to learn more about you and your work, where can people find you?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. They can find me over at mattreiner.com. That's where you see all the content. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on YouTube, and you can sign up for our email newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter 3 times a week called The Circle, talking about the mind, the profession, and the client experience. So giving input on all of those.
Beautiful. What about your podcast? Shout to the podcast.
Bridging the Gap is on mattreiner.com, but check it out on Spotify or Stitcher. Daniel, go check out the conversation I had with Daniel on Bridging the Gap as well. And yes, tune in there.
Yeah, best episode without a doubt. Matt, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Standard Deviations. If you can't wait till next week for more behavioral finance insights, visit www.orion.com. All opinions expressed by Dr. Daniel Crosby and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of or endorsement by Orion and its affiliates, subsidiaries, and employees. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for legal, tax, and investment decisions. The opinions are based upon information the participants consider reliable.